Two metals, a raised bed, 20 minutes of your time, and then you never buy a slug bait again? The pest control industry generates $4 billion a year, selling you products that wash away in the first spring rain. Metaldehyde pellets, iron phosphate bait, copper tape from the garden center that is too narrow to work and oxidizes before the season ends. You reapply. The slugs return, you reapply again. That is not pest control, that is a subscription. What I am about to show you is a self-powering electrochemical barrier that uses the same physics Alessandro Volta documented in 1800. Two dissimilar metals, moisture as the activating electrolyte, a continuous low-voltage current that slugs and soft-bodied pests will not cross. No batteries, no replacement chemicals, no recurring cost. You build it once, and the rain maintains it. Here's the exact build, every material, every measurement, where to get it, how to put it together today. Two materials, that is the entire system. First, copper tape, not the narrow decorative strips sold in garden centers. Industrial copper foil tape, the kind used for electromagnetic shielding in electronics. 40 millimeters wide minimum. That width is not optional. I will explain why in a moment. Find it at Home Depot, Lowe's, any electrical supply wholesaler, or anywhere online. A 10-meter roll of 40 millimeter tape runs $8 to $15. One roll does two standard 4x8 raised beds with material to spare. Second, galvanized metal strip, zinc-coated steel roof flashing, available at any home improvement store in the roofing section. A 10-foot roll costs $3 to $5. You cut it into strips with tin snips. The zinc coating is what matters, not the steel underneath. For one raised bed, you spend $4 to $6 total. That covers the bed permanently. Here's how you put it together. Run the copper tape around the top outer edge of your raised bed frame in a continuous strip, no gaps. Then, run a strip of galvanized flashing directly below the copper tape with a gap of less than 1 centimeter between them. The two metals do not touch above the soil line. That gap is where the slug completes the circuit. Drive the bottom edge of the flashing strip slightly into the soil at the base of the bed frame so it makes contact with damp earth. Moisture is everything here. It is the electrolyte that activates the entire reaction. Dry soil does nothing. Damp soil turns the whole structure into a continuous low-voltage battery. For fruit trees, wrap a 6-centimeter band of copper tape around the trunk at knee height. Run galvanized wire in a loose spiral directly below it with a small overlap at the contact point. The mucus of any slug climbing that trunk bridges both metals simultaneously. That is where the circuit closes. For garden perimeters, drive short metal stakes along the boundary, run galvanized wire between them at ground level, lay copper tape along the top edge of that wire. Anchored, rainproof, active from the moment the soil is damp. Total cost for a full kitchen garden, $20 to $30, one time. Now here is why this works, and the physics behind it is genuinely remarkable. Every metal sits at a specific position on what electrochemists call the Galvanic series, a ranking of metals by their electrochemical potential. Zinc sits at approximately negative 1.1 volts. Copper sits at approximately positive 0.34 volts. When two metals at different positions on that series are connected by an electrolyte, a conductive liquid, electrons flow from the more reactive metal to the less reactive one. Current moves, a voltage is generated. Alessandro Volta first demonstrated this in 1800 with a stack of zinc and copper discs separated by brine-soaked cloth. That was the first practical battery in human history. He was not trying to stop slugs, he was trying to understand electricity. But the physics he documented that year is identical to what happens when a slug's mucus bridges your copper-zinc barrier in the garden. A slug moves on a continuous layer of ion-rich mucus. That mucus is electrically conductive. It carries charge the way salt water carries charge. When a slug contacts your barrier, and its mucus bridges the gap between the copper tape above and the zinc flashing below. It completes the galvanic circuit. Current flows through its body. The slug detects that current through its nervous system as an immediate, intense aversion signal. It recoils, it turns back, it does not try again. The system requires no external power source because it generates its own. The electrochemical reaction between copper and zinc is continuous. As long as moisture is present, rain recharges it automatically every time it falls. You do nothing. This is why the width of the copper tape matters. A narrow strip, less than 2 centimeters, does not give the slug's mucus enough surface area to reliably bridge both metals and close the circuit. The voltage generated is too low. The slug may tolerate it or slip across. 4 centimeters of copper tape paired with a zinc strip below it generates a voltage differential that is not a mild suggestion. It is a wall. Here's the history that the chemical industry would prefer you did not know. In 1845, a Scottish landowner named Robert Foster ran a network of copper and zinc wire across his barley fields near Elgin. He published his findings in the British Cultivator that March. Pest damage near zero. No aphids. No beetles. Workers reported that clouds of biting insects, which normally descended on them at dusk, halted at the edge of the treated fields and turned back. The Royal Society called the findings remarkable, and then nothing. In 1912, an international scientific conference reviewed the accumulated evidence for electroculture, the use of electrical phenomena in agriculture. The consensus was clear: it works, the science is real. Large-scale adoption was being seriously discussed. Then, 1914 happened. The war tore through European agriculture. When the fighting stopped, munitions factories had enormous chemical stockpiles and no market for them. Ammonium nitrate, the base of high explosives, became nitrogen fertilizer. Organophosphate nerve agents were reformulated as insecticides. The chemical industry did not just enter agriculture, it consumed it. The galvanic barrier was not disproven. It was not debunked. It was made economically irrelevant. One observer at the time captured it exactly. They did not abandon it because it did not work. They buried it because it worked too well, cost too little, and lasted too long. It did not just repel pests, it repelled profit. The U.S. home pesticide market is worth $4 billion a year. Slug bait alone is one of the fastest growing segments of that market. Metaldehyde, the active compound in most blue pellets, is a neurotoxin. It disrupts the mucus regulation of slugs and kills them by dehydration. It also kills dogs, cats, hedgehogs, and ground-feeding birds that ingest it. Several European countries have restricted it significantly. The United Kingdom banned metaldehyde slug pellets for garden use entirely in 2020. The organic alternative, iron phosphate bait, is safer. It also washes away in rain, breaks down in soil within days, and requires reapplication every 7 to 14 days through the growing season. A full season of organic pellet control on a mid-sized vegetable garden costs $40 to $80 every year, indefinitely. A galvanic copper-zinc barrier installed once costs $4 to $6 per raised bed, lasts 3 to 5 years, costs nothing to run, harms no pollinator, no hedgehog, no earthworm. The chemical industry's business model requires recurring purchases. A one-time physical barrier that runs on rain is not a recurring purchase, which is why you are hearing about this here and not from anyone with a marketing budget. One maintenance step, and it matters. Copper oxidizes. Over weeks of outdoor exposure, it develops a thin layer of copper oxide, the same greenish patina you see on old copper roofing. That oxide layer reduces conductivity. A barrier that is conducting at 80% of its potential is still effective, but is giving some slugs an easier crossing than they should get. Once a month during growing season, wipe the copper tape with fine steel wool or a damp cloth, 30 seconds per bed. The copper brightens immediately from dull to gold as the oxide lifts. That is not aesthetic. That is the surface returning to full electrochemical potential. Do it on the same day you check your garden beds, and it becomes habit rather than chore. Keep the gap between copper and zinc clear of debris. Soil, leaf litter, or plant material bridging, that gap creates a bypass that short-circuits the barrier. Check it when you do your monthly wipe. 2 minutes of inspection maintains 3 to 5 years of protection. One honest note, this system deters slugs. It does not guarantee zero crossing by a large, determined adult slug in peak feeding season pushing through under severe hunger. What it does is shift the odds so dramatically that most gardeners running a properly maintained dual metal barrier see slug damage go from a constant problem to a rare incident. Properly installed, clean, wide tape, continuous with no gaps. That is the system that works. Drop a coil of bare copper wire into every standing water source on your property. Rain barrels, bird baths, that low spot in the lawn that never drains. Any container you cannot empty every 3 days. Copper ions released continuously into standing water achieve near-complete mosquito larval mortality, documented in a 2015 study by Dr. Norbert Becker at the German Mosquito Control Association, published in the journal Parasites and Vectors. No chemicals, no mosquito dunks, no monthly treatments. Drop the wire in and walk away. And here's the last thing, because most people stop at the raised bed and miss half the system. If you have a chicken coop, a rabbit hutch, or any enclosed animal shelter, run a strip of copper tape along the base of every wall panel at ground level. Zinc flashing below it, same gap, same setup. Slugs carry lungworm. Chickens eat slugs. Lungworm in a flock is a veterinary bill and a loss of laying productivity that costs more in one season than this entire barrier costs to build. The physics that stops a slug at your tomato plant stops it at your coop too. Same 2 metals, same $4. If you grow in containers, pots, half barrels, grow bags on a patio, Wrap the rim of each container with a 4 cm copper strip and press a galvanized washer or coin against the underside so the two metals nearly touch. The pot itself becomes the barrier. No stakes, no perimeter, just the container protected. The Galvanic series has not changed since Volta published his findings in 1800. The physics does not expire. The metals do not wash away. Slugs cannot develop resistance to a voltage differential any more than they can develop resistance to gravity. You install this once and the rain runs it for free every time it falls. Everything you need is at Home Depot or Lowe's for under $30. The chemical industry has been selling you a subscription to solve a problem that two metals and damp soil solved in 1845. Now you know, so you can go fix the problem properly. That's it for me today. Hope you learned a lot, and I'll see you in the next one.